What are other experts saying about the Pacers' potential win total this season, and why do I think they're all just a little too low? We'll break that down and all the recent news you need to know, including some transactions the Pacers made on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Thursday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and on SI, and today, we have a lot to get to. The news has been flying in for the Pacers, and predictions are coming in from other outlets. I think they're all just missing the mark a little bit. Not a lot of it, but a little bit about the Pacers. I want to explain why. Looking at them, looking at the general consensus seems to be forming on the Eastern Conference. Pacers, just interesting. It's just interesting. I don't mean that anyone's done. We'll get into that today. All the recent news, Pacers have made 3 signings, I think, since the last time I talked about their roster. And we'll talk some free agency next year. Lots of news that's come in the last couple weeks. We'll do probably 1 or 2 more news things before the season actually gets rolling again. It's really fun to dive through all these. And I am fired up because I spent my night at Fever Sun, which was like the perfect basketball game. Simone Biles, Anthony Richardson, David Letterman, Gabby Thomas, all there. Crazy environment. And it was a close game the whole time. And the Fever held on to win against the number 2 seeded Sun. It was awesome. You should check out Fever games if you can and care about that. If not, we're going to talk about the Pacers right now. And I'm starting with ESPN. We're going to talk about 3 outlets and what they've said about the Pacers this year, what I think is right and wrong about what they've said. And we'll start with ESPN, who did their Eastern Conference predictions. And they said the Pacers will finish with 46 wins, good for 7th in the East. And that will be a theme of something we talk about as we do this, because Bleacher Report also did Eastern Conference predictions. Andy Bailey specifically, he put a name on it. ESPN's just said ESPN NBA staff. Bleacher Report also penned the Pacers for 46 wins next season, 1 fewer than last year. Here's why I think people are landing on that conclusion, is that the Pacers have the exact same roster, primarily, minus Doug McDermott, Jalen Smith, plus James Wiseman, Johnny Furphy, as they did to end the postseason last year. The almost exact same team. And that team did well in the playoffs, but they won 47 games and clinched the playoffs on the last day. And while that's happened, the Sixers, who finished behind them, air quotes, in the standings, they had the same number of wins. It was just a tiebreaker, got better with Paul George and some good role players. And the Knicks got a lot better, and the Knicks had 50 wins last year. The Bucks got a little better, and the Magic added KCP. And so there's all these teams that finished right around the Pacers or even below them in theory that are better and will take away a win or 2. The East is that much better from the Pacers, right? That's the thinking, is that the Pacers are running it back and these teams did all these things. Now, the Pacers fortunately get to play the Bulls 4 times this year and the Pistons 4 times this year, and those teams didn't change enough for that to really change the Pacers' fortune in the win-loss column, whereas these other teams don't have that advantage. The other thing I think that's actually serious that I think is being missed here is the Pacers, and I think similarly about Minnesota, although less so because theirs is more on one guy. They're running it back with a young team to the extent that, like, it's almost impossible to me that, like, just pointing at the Pacers roster, the starting point guard is under 25. Their starting 2 guard is going to be under 25. Their starting 3 is going to be under 25. Their backup 2 is going to be under 25. Their backup 3 is going to be under 25. Their backup 4 has only been in the league 4 years and is 26. And their backup 5 is going to be under 25. The odds that none of those players are any better, just start right there, right, is super low. So the odds that the Pacers aren't also better, like I agree that adding a player is more valuable than potentially that, but it would be stunning to me if none of them are any better, right? And point number 2 to make on the Pacers getting better is, yes, you can look and say they have the same team that won 47 games last year. That's true. Guess what? They won 47 games and Pascal Siakam played half of them on the dot, 41. They got him in January. Now they have him in training camp and the rest of those games. And we'll talk more about Siakam later in this because he just did a really cool thing with some of his teammates. So I understand why, and I bet this happens more when I bet The Athletic does predictions, and a lot of people should. I did my predictions for the Pacers. I got 48 minus the in-season tournament games, so probably actually like 49. Right? I get why people are going to land on fewer wins, and for ESPN, that was the 7 seed, with the Magic being one ahead of them at 47, and the Heat being behind them, I think, at 45. Okay, guess what? Bleacher Report, same thing. Magic ahead of them. Magic had 49 in Andes, and the Heat right behind them. Same top 8 for both teams. Really similar order: Boston, Philly, Milwaukee, New York, Cleveland, Orlando, Indiana, and Miami for Bleacher Report. Right. So you look at this, and I just think that two things are being underrated. Siakam for a full season, even if that adds one win over a 41 game sample, just one, which is so easy to say. Pascal Siakam adds one win half a season. No, it's way more than that. But if you just say it's one, great. Then the young guy improvement. I think that it's natural that the Pacers should be better, which is why I got to 48/49 for my predicted win total. I think you're going to see a lot of this. I'm not going to go through this exercise every time on why I think these people are just slightly wrong, especially because the bottom of the East got worse too. Like I already mentioned the Bulls; they'll be an easier win, but the Hawks should be an easier win. Pacers smoked them last year anyway, but it's going to be a little easier to pick up those easy wins, even though the Pacers stunk at that last year. So I think it's just more plausible to get to the high 40s. In fact, it's easier to predict it too because, hey, they're a better team and they have better players. And I think Haliburton's going to come out on a mission too, as he's talked about. So I get why people are going to say this. Like, I'm not calling anyone dumb for saying the Pacers are going to win fewer games or be 7. In fact, they were tied for 7th wins last year. Like, it's not insane to say that that's possible. They'll be in the plan to make the playoffs. But I do think that the logic is just a little off, just a tiny bit, even though these other teams made moves. Like the Cavs won 2 more games than them last year. The Cavs have had nobody. They don't even have the young guy thing to go on. They're going on coaching, right? So I don't know where I'm going to put the Pacers in the East, but I'm going to put them higher than 7th, and I'm going to put them above 46 wins. That's for sure. And the other predictions thing that happened, David Aldridge doing his yearly off-season rankings for every team in the NBA. I really like this exercise. No one really does anything like this who covers the league. That's why I respect DA for doing it. It's hard, right? It's hard to discern what's different and what teams' goals are and all sorts of stuff like that. He had the Pacers at 14th, right in the middle, one spot above the middle. I think that's reasonable just because they didn't really have a lot of other paths to follow, and they still found a way to get a little younger, right? And I think getting Furphy for next to nothing to move up, that's all great. Aldridge's blurb is the Pacers clearly knew what it would take to keep Siakam when they got him from Toronto, but getting it done officially means the franchise can get on with its rise in the East. A full season of Siakam, Haliburton, Turner at the pace Indiana plays with now proven postseason talent and abundance throughout the rotation should give the Pacers a leg up over many of their competitors for a top 4 berth in the East, and then no harm in taking a flyer on Wiseman. I agree. I think that's pretty much exactly right. I've recently heard another group. I finally heard someone really crush the Pacers offseason, but I think if you crush it, you have to offer the alternatives of what they should have done better, because I don't think they really had a lot of other paths outside of using the MLE instead of signing Obi Toppin. And I don't even know that would have been better because I don't know who was taking the Pacers money. But I think that this is about where I would put the Pacers offseason compared to the rest of the league, is 14th-ish, 15th, right about average, because I went through the whole grades with Jake Queer. If you want to listen to that and hear why, there's some moves I found less perplexing or less high upsidey, but a lot of stuff that they kept Siakam. That was the mandatory must numero uno thing. They got every player they got on a good contract, and they're ready to build for the future. And maybe they look back on this and go, dang, we should have kept the powder a little drier, but I think they'll be happy with keeping the vibes together from last year and then figuring out things from there. Now, instead of talking about what other people said about the Pacers, let me talk about what I think about the Pacers, including their free agents next year, the 2028 Olympics, the roster moves we've heard the Pacers make in recent days, weeks, whatever, and plenty more coming right up. Hey guys, let's very quickly take a break so we can talk about the good folks over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time. Or guess what? You'll get your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen needs to be Locked On NBA, because I was on it again. I'm the super sub for that show anyway. This month is people taking vacation times. I'm happy for them. I'm also happy to fill in and talk about the league. Nick Angstad and I talk about coaches who could get fired this year. Not a lot of coaching chatter this offseason. I found that to be a fun exercise. And then we dove into his favorite thing, Count It Up, looking at random notes and news from around the NBA, including some stuff on ex-Pacer Domantas Sabonis. Let's keep going here on the Pacers, the current Pacers, by talking about roster moves they just made. Probably should have squeezed this in and just like a note earlier. I think people are interested in this, but Pacers have signed 3 players since I last talked about this. If you go back to the August 1st episode, moves the Pacers can still make this offseason, I detailed this part of what they could do and what it looks like and why contracts work this way. But they signed Kyle Mangus, which he revealed on this very podcast. I think that's the first time a signing has been broken on Locked On Pacers, which is pretty cool. Pacers signed Kyle Mangus and Cameron McGriff to Exhibit 10s last weekend. They were around for like 3 days. They were both waived. And then Dakota Mathias, which many listeners should remember from Purdue, and he played for the Pacers in Summer League this year. He signed with the Pacers on an Exhibit 10. And it's very clear in the press release that it's an Exhibit 10 with the Mad Ants for Mathias, right? Like, he has actual NBA experience, so I think there could have been some intrigue about, like, could he actually try to make the team? No, it's very clearly for the Mad Ants. McGriff has NBA experience. Again, same thing. He's already been waived. Same with Mangus. So starting with those two guys, Mangus and McGriff, they were both on the Mad Ants last year to finish last season critically. So the Mad Ants own their rights already. I don't want to get too in the weeds with Exhibit 10s, but they sign and waive them. Now they get a bonus if they report to the Mad Ants for 60 days this coming season, and the Mad Ants already have their rights. So easy peasy lemon squeezy. They don't have to come to camp. They just do this transaction, get it over with, right? Good for those guys to get a bonus, and good for the Mad Ants. They're both good. Cameron McGriff played for the Trailblazers a few seasons ago for a few games. Mangus was one of the Mad Ants' better players last year. And again, you can hear more from him on this very podcast from last week. So those two signed and waived. And so the Pacers roster was at 19, right? The 15 that we knew kind of after the Wiseman Furphy signings, the 3 2-ways, and then Cole Swider. That makes 19. You can carry 21 in the offseason. So Mangus plus McGriff made 21. So to sign Dakota Mathias, they had to waive one of those Exhibit 10 guys. They waived both, which is fine. And then they signed Dakota Mathias. He is now on an Exhibit 10. The press release, again, makes it extremely clear. I hope I get no questions about this, but I mean, maybe I should explain it better if I do. It says Exhibit 10 contract. It says with the Mad Ants. Now, he has not been waived yet, and I'm going to there's not a real reason. The timing isn't like so specific or anything. So he's currently under contract with the Pacers, but literally it says in the press release, sign Mathias to Exhibit 10 contract with the Mad Ants. I'm glad the NBA is allowing teams to do this. So much easier for fans to understand. So here's the difference between Mangus and McGriff and Mathias. Mathias, his G League rights are owned by the Memphis Hustle. So at some point in the next, name your timeline, I don't know, month, when training camp starts, you're going to see a press release from the Indiana Mad Ants that I assume this. I guess I don't know this, but you're going to see a press release from them that says they traded to acquire the rights to Dakota Mathias, and then the Pacers can waive him, and he would get a bonus for being in the G League. So cool for him. I think I just saw on his Twitter feed that him and his wife had a baby. Congratulations to them. So Dakota Mathias currently under contract with the Pacers. I presume he'll be waived before camp because his G League rights already exist. And then the other churn with Kisei Tominaga, Josiah Jordan-James, anyone else that they may sign would come at that point. Technically, the Pacers could sign somebody else right now. They have an open roster spot because they only added Mathias after waiving those two guys. But be on the lookout for a press release from the Mad Ants, I would guess. I don't know that, but I would guess. And then that is the first of 3 of presumably more Exhibit 10s we've seen from the Pacers this summer, and that's where their roster stands right now. With college players who no one owns their Exhibit 10 rights, the Exhibit 10 counts as getting G League rights for an organization, but they have to be with the team for a real day of training camp for a day. Again, Kyle Mangus explained that on this very podcast. If you want to learn more about what that day looked like for him because no one owned his G League rights until he signed that Exhibit 10 with the Pacers, which will be the case for Tominaga and Jordan James and anyone else who sneaks in from the college ranks. So that is what's happened with the roster. Something else happened, by the way. I very rarely do this, where I just wildly throw out nonsense transactions. Most fans, when they think about the NBA, they think about, well, how can this team acquire a star, blah, blah. When I think about my favorite team, or I think about the Pacers, I always think about like little things. EJ Liddell just got waived by the Suns because they're trying to save money. They also waived and stretched Nasir Little in the same swath of transactions. EJ Liddell, I think he was 1 pick ahead or 7 picks ahead or something of Kendall Brown in the 2022 draft. And I liked him in that draft. And then he got hurt and missed a whole year. He is 2A eligible. If I'm the Pacers, I might think about waiving Quentin Jackson for EJ Liddell if it meant he would take a 2A. I don't know if he wants a 2A or if he wants to explore their options, but I just saw that waiver and I thought, pretty late in the offseason for a guy that interesting for a 2A to actually be available. And we've seen the Pacers get Trevelin Queen really late into the offseason on a 2A. I don't know that they're even thinking about making that sort of change, but I think EJ Liddell's all right, and I guess that's worth a bet. He's a 6'7" wing. That doesn't really matter. I very rarely do stuff like that where I just say, hey, here's something I would do if I were running the Pacers. But that's something I would think about if I were running the Pacers. 2 things I want to talk one more roster thing to get to, and 2 things I want to finish this segment with. Future-looking stuff. Let's talk about 2025 free agency, because I think the list of free agents is actually longer than people realize for the Pacers because it's very few key players, but it's still a lengthy list. Like the next offseason is going to have a lot of little chatter, right? So here's the alphabetical list of potential free agents for the Pacers next summer. First is Kendall Brown. His contract's non-guaranteed for the coming season, and then next season's also non-guaranteed with the team option. It's possible if he has an amazing training camp and then somehow is required to play the season and plays really well again, that he could not be a free agent and the Pacers would just keep him around. But if he's waived before the season starts, if he's waived next summer, if his team options declined, there's a lot of ways Kendall Brown could be a free agent in 2025. I would expect that to be the case. Enrique Freeman's on a 1-year 2A deal. He's going to be a free agent in 2025. They can make him restricted if he plays well. Isaiah Jackson could, and I would guess will, be a restricted free agent next summer. He's extension eligible until 2 days before the season starts. We'll see what happens with that. But if no extension happens, he's going to be a potentially restricted, I guess, free agent next summer. Quentin Jackson is on a 1-year 2A deal. He will be a free agent next summer as well. I guess I should say this. With Freeman and Jackson and anyone, it's possible like the Pacers waive them and then someone else signs them to a 2-year deal and then they're not a free agent. But as on their current contract, Quentin Jackson will be a free agent next summer. Could also be restricted. James Johnson's on a 1-year minimum deal. He will be a free agent next summer. Myles Turner is the biggest one. Guaranteed to be a free agent next summer. His contract cannot be extended. So unless, again, he's waived and signs a 2-year deal with someone else, which doesn't make any sense. Myles Turner will be a free agent next year, which is the most significant thing for the Pacers roster-wise this season. TJ McConnell will be a free agent next year unless his contract is extended, which it will be extension eligible from now until free agency starts next year, even after the season ends. So his free agency technically for next year could start the second the Pacers are out and their season's done. Tristan Newton will be a free agent next year because he's on a 1-year 2A deal, could be restricted. Cole Swider's on a 1-year non-guaranteed minimum. He will be a free agent next summer. And James Wiseman wraps this up with he could be a free agent next summer. He is on a 2-year deal, non-guaranteed, partial guarantees both years with a team option. If he plays awesome, then they will not waive him or decline the team option. So then he would not be a free agent next summer. But if he struggles or doesn't play well, perhaps he could be waived or that option is declined as they search for other centers. And then he would be a free agent. So lots of guys who could be almost 9. I believe that's 9 names that I just said, but of major consequence or of rotation quality consequence, only 3 of those guys project to be at that level next year. Let's close out with one more future looking thing. The 2020 Olympics, who could be representing the Pacers for their basketball teams. And then some other little news things that have come across the desk, including the Pacers on TV. Where, how? Let's break that down to finish up today's Locked On Pacers. And we're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Make your second listen Locked On Women's Basketball so you can hear more about the surging fever and all other things man, they crush it over there. I'm on there a decent amount talking Fever, but they crush it getting marquee, actually in the WNBA and college basketball scene guests. It's fantastic. I believe there'll be a Fever person on there pretty soon, but it won't be me. But either way, fantastic. Check it out. Daily women's basketball coverage. Okay, we continue here on the Pacers. And DeMichael Cole, who hosts Locked On Grizzlies, wrote this in the commercial appeal about what Memphis Grizzlies players could be representing the Grizzlies in the 2028 Olympics. And I thought that's an interesting topic. Let's look at this for the Pacers. And this list got way longer than I expected because they have a lot of guys who could be in the mix. Obviously, look, at the very top, Tyrese Haliburton. He probably has the best chance of anybody. He already did it. He'll be better then because he'll be 28 instead of 24. And some of the older guys will have aged out of that team. And some young guys could age in, but I'd project that if they already like him in the program and he already has the experience and he's good and he'll be better, he'll have a very good shot to be on that team. So Tyrese Haliburton, United States, that could be a fun one. Obviously, Andrew Nembhard with Canada, same deal. He'll be 28, probably the same age. Already did it once. That program will still have probably the same guards, maybe the same guards. So it'll be tough to be in that mix, but he's good and already was in the mix. So he's another one that could be a candidate there. Pascal Siakam with Cameroon. Cameroon actually made it to the summer qualifiers this year, which is pretty far for them in general. They, I think, won AfroBasket or did well enough in AfroBasket to get that far. But Siakam was on the preliminary Cameroon roster for that event. I think that's 24 guys. But he couldn't do it because of free agency. Don't want to get hurt. Okay, so maybe he plays in 2028 if Cameroon continues to be good. But he signed a 4-year deal, meaning he'll be a free agent again that summer. So I think if you want to see Siakam in the Olympics, you need Cameroon to play well without him, and then you need him to sign an extension before he becomes a free agent in 2028. Otherwise, that one's kind of unlikely, although it is possible. Mathurin with Canada, he was in their camp this summer. Clearly, they want him to be developed in the Canada program, which makes a lot of sense. He could sneak into that mix if there's room on the wing, room at guard, whatever could shake out there. But again, not a ton of like older players on Canada that could be shaking out in those spots. But clearly they want Mathurin to be a part of this. So I'll be curious where that one would go. I think by the time he's 26, I think in 2028, he'll have the talent. Johnny Furphy with Australia. He actually was a part of their top 22 roster for the Olympics this year, but with draft and everything, he didn't get farther than that. But if he's already in the top 22, and they do have some older players, and he'll be 23 at the time, you have to imagine he'll be in the top 22 again next time. Shooting and like size in the wing is not really something that Australia team has a ton of too. And he even said it, right? If you listen to the Pacers podcast, Furphy was on it. He said, keeping a close eye on the Boomers right now. It's exciting to see what they've done. Keeping a close eye and kind of watching it. Picturing myself playing in that sort of FIBA environment is definitely exciting. Kind of the ultimate goal for me. Would be pretty cool to see Furphy in the next Olympics. Last one, smaller one, Enrique Freeman. If he's Puerto Rican, of Puerto Rican descent, Puerto Rico made it this year. They have Jose Alvarado. They have NBA players. They're pretty good. Perhaps if he goes that route for his international basketball, that could be possible. It's also possible that none of the guys I said, besides maybe Haliburton or Siakam, are on the Pacers in 4 years, right? Rosters change so much. I'm not predicting that all those guys will be gone, but it's just how the NBA goes. But as it stands right now, I think those are the guys who have the best shot to to be on their Olympic teams 4 years from now. Let's run through some news line items. The biggest one, Bally Sports back in the mix. As we saw from the court docs last Friday, I believe, so we're almost a week into this. They have their kind of plan coming for bankruptcy, although Amazon just pulled out of that situation with Diamond Sports, it looks like. So who knows how they'll get some funding. But either way, because Diamond Sports filed for bankruptcy, they are still operating. They have an agreement with the NBA and NHL for 22 total teams, 9 in the NHL and 13 in the NBA, and the Pacers are one of those 13. Now they have let me be clear, they have an agreement with the NBA. That doesn't mean it's a guarantee that Pacers will be on Bally this season. I don't know that. I would assume that they would be, given that agreement exists. You don't come to that agreement and go, just kidding. But that's my guess, is what that's trending towards, is the Pacers being on Bally and with the Diamond Sports Group for at least another year. And then we'll see how RSN's transfer from there as the league goes through its own media rights situation. And who knows what Bally's going to happen with their bankruptcy. And as part of it, it even said, if they get through, if their Chapter 11 exit plan, I don't want to get too law-y, but if it is not approved or doesn't work by the end of next season, then all 22 of those agreements, the 9 NHL and 13 NBA, boom, terminated. So this could be the last year of Bally for the Pacers, depending on how bankruptcy things go and what the Pacers want to do. We'll see. But it looks like we don't know this for sure. I think people took this to say it's a certainty, and I would still put it at very high odds. But it's not locked. But looking likely, Bally Sports will be the home locally for the Pacers this coming season. If there is a more the reason I haven't talked about this yet is it's not a certainty. But if we get a certainty update, I will talk about it in more detail. So I'm expecting Bally Sports to be the answer. Ted Wu, Pacers assistant general manager and cap strategy manager. I forget his exact title, but it's something close to that. He was named in the Athletics 40 under 40, which is pretty cool. Mark Vornukov has done that 2 or 3 times now, where he goes through and finds non-player talent in the NBA under 40 years old. So coaches, scouts, execs, whatever, what have you. And Ted Wu was on it. He's 36 and been in the Pacers front office for the last 3 years. He came from the NBA's front office and the cap team there with the league. Pretty cool. The Pacers have had salary cap strategists before. Peter Dinwiddie was all about that stuff before he went to the Sixers. It's very valuable to have. And Ted, very cool honor for him, and amazing to have someone that young be making, be a part of making major decisions and be involved in that kind of stuff. But very cool for Ted. And hey, perhaps he's on the next couple iterations of that list because he's not even that close to 40 just yet. Cool honor for him. Kisei Tominaga and Isaiah Wong, who's not with the Pacers anymore, but was with the Pacers very recently and still doesn't have a new team yet, are playing in the G League Fall Invitational, which is in like a week, actually. Every fall that something happens with this G League program. It used to, like last year was the Ignite versus Perth. So Alex Sarr played against Ignite, if you remember that. 2 years ago, it was Wemby versus Scoot, as many remember. This year, it's Jokic's old team, Goga Batate's old team, KK Mega B-Max versus an assortment of G League talent. Tominaga's on it. He will sign an Exhibit 10 with the Pacers. And then Isaiah Wong is also on it. I haven't actually kept up too much with where that roster has gone or what it looks like now. So perhaps there's more Mad Ants or former Pacers that have snuck in there. But that's the ones that we know that have Pacers connection so far. And that game is September 4th and 6th. So if you want to watch Kisei Tominaga in his first NBA setting, that would be a place to do it. NBA 2K25 comes out next week on the 4th. We have all the Pacers player ratings. Tyrese Haliburton's a 90. That's awesome. 19th are in the NBA, really tied for 20th. Pascal Siakam's an 88. That's higher than last year. Myles Turner's an 84. I'm not going to read all of these, but Andrew Nembhard's 81. Mathurin, Toppin, McConnell are 80s. Neesmith 79. Wiseman and Jackson 77. I think Neesmith is too low, was my first blush at looking at the ratings. I think that Ben Shepherd is too low as well. 3-and-D wings are the hardest guys to put on a talent ranking list. That makes sense to me as being difficult because they're really impactful players because their role is really important, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're like, if you were assigning a skill rating to every player, their overall would be high. So I get where that discrepancy does come from. You can read all that stuff on 2kratings.com, I believe, or I wrote an article about it because people really like 2K ratings. I haven't played 2K since Giannis was on the cover. Last thing, Pascal Siakam. I read an interview his agent Todd Ramishar did in Sports Keto with Mark Deeks. I think I talked about that on the last news show. Siakam has a gym in his house that's now done. I don't know if it's in his house or by his house or whatever. But there was a bunch of videos on his Instagram of him working out with, this is just the people in the video, so it's possible there are more there. Mike Weiner, assistant coach for the Pacers, was there. A couple Pacers basketball assistants were there. And then Jarris Walker was there. Andrew Nembhard, so the agency connection. Johnny Furphy, Enrique Freeman, Cole Swider, Kendall Brown. So a lot of young guys, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool move by Siakam to do something like that. He talked a lot about stacking days in a video where he was talking to them about off-season work and things of the sorts. 2 great videos of Johnny Furphy and Cole Swider just being money shooters from the right corner in this gym. I think Overtime posted most of the videos from it on their Twitter feed if you actually want to see it. But a cool gesture from Siakam to do that and bring the whole team together. And I believe that's most of their young guys, or most of their guys drafted within the last 2 or 3 years. I don't know where all the rest are, but pretty cool gesture. I'm curious to learn more about that when the season actually starts. That is it for the news of now for the Pacers. Hoops Hype's doing a rankings by position for every position. We were so close to getting into it. They've done 4 of the 5 positions, but not all 5 yet. So we'll talk about that next time. I presume we'll be talking about all sorts of other stuff like ESPN did their awards predictions. They have 2 Pacers there. We'll talk about that. But I'm going to do my own awards prediction show. So lots of other news-related items will come as the offseason progresses. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show and learned something and enjoyed me talking about news that matters to you and enjoyed me saying, hey, these predictions for other people are missing just some small points about the Pacers. Tomorrow, I changed the schedule because I had I've had a busy week. It doesn't matter. Tomorrow will be the day we do the small forward best seasons by a Pacer episode. So lots of Paul George, but lots of guys will be mixed in. I'm looking forward to that. I've been really enjoying those. I think I've enjoyed those more than you guys, honestly, but a really good way to learn some Pacers history and even tie to the present in some cases. Haliburton was all over the point guards list. Oladipo on the shooting guards. We'll see how recent the best season of a small forward makes it and is. And then next week we'll get rolling again with more fun stuff there as well. So hope you guys enjoyed today's show and are enjoying Locked On Pacers. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more about the Indiana Pacers. Till then, everybody, have a wonderful day.